Have you ever seen a master at work? Their actions so smooth, so effortless, that it's as if they were born with the gift. But I'm going to reveal something to you that will blow you away. Something that goes against all you've been taught about greatness. The reality is, the warrior is average. Yes, you heard it right. But this is the trick that sets them apart from the rest. They practice every day. I recall the first time I realized this fact. I was 16, practicing until my knuckles were bloody, gritting through pain that would send others packing. My master sat in the corner, watching me in silence, and when, at last, I stumbled in exhaustion, he didn't give encouragement for my ferocity. Instead, he uttered something that would alter my life permanently. Young Bruce, you desire the extraordinary through effort. But the journey to mastery is not discovered in flashes of extreme striving. It's discovered in arriving when no one is there to see you, in the silent discipline of daily practice. I didn't get it though. How could average become extraordinary? It sounded impossible, absurd. But as the years went by, as I evolved my own philosophy, as I built Jeet Kune Do, I began to see that he wasn't saying I should be average. He was showing me the secret truth of human potential that most people never learn. Look around you. Society worships the moment of victory, the knockout blow, the championship win, the breakthrough performance. They revere these peaks as if they sprang up from the ground, as if excellence is some kind of fairy dust that certain people are given. They overlook what really counts. They overlook the thousands of dawns when the warrior woke before the sun, when their bodies screamed for sleep, but their spirit insisted on expansion. They miss the limitless repetition, the minor adjustments, the minute-by-minute decisions that, on their own, are meaningless, but together build something that is uncontainable. You see, what separates the warrior from everyone else is not talent. It is not some inherent ability or preordained fate. It is the adherence to daily tending the realization that world-class outcomes are the result of everyday action executed with world-class frequency. Let me share something with you about water. It looks soft, yielding, apparently the weakest thing in the world, had biggest thing in the world. But with enough time, water can wear through rock, carve great canyons, change the face of entire landscapes, not with explosive force, but with steady effort, with showing up day after day, drop after drop, taking the road of least resistance, but never, ever ceasing. I grew up in Hong Kong, observing the fishermen coming back every morning, their skin creased by salt and sun, their hands hardened by everyday toil. There was nothing glamorous about any given day of their work. Nobody celebrated them. Nobody wrote novels of their routine. But in their repetition, in their everydayness, there was something deep, a different form of mastery that our fame, addicted culture, has lost sight of. When I introduced martial arts to America, everybody demanded shortcuts. They requested the hidden maneuver, the secret method, the shortcut to becoming powerful. They'd practice with intense passion for a week, then vanish for a month. They'd come back, hoping to be transformed, only to remain where they had been all along, seething with frustration, as the typical students who never skipped a day kept moving ahead of them. I remember one student in particular, a naturally gifted athlete with reflexes that made others jealous. He would appear, dazzle everyone with his potential, then vanish when training became monotonous. There was another student unremarkable in every physical way. His first punch was awkward, his balance mediocre. his speed, nothing to notice. But he never missed a day. Never. Not once in 3 years. Guess which one built real power? Guess which one ultimately found themselves true to themselves in their work? The warriors of old knew something that we've lost sight of. They knew mastery is not about intensity. It's about saturation. It's not about the flash. It's about the endurance. The samurai didn't become deadly by training until they fell over once a month. They are made into living weapons through the ritual of everyday practice, through being present when inspired and present when uninspired, knowing that sheer routine is the greatest force in the human condition. This is what I am expressing when I say the warrior is ordinary, but trains daily. The warrior is not omnipotent. They bleed as you do. They have doubts as you do. They are afraid as you are. But they've learned that transcendence is not discovered in flight from our humanity. It's discovered in embracing the sacred power of daily discipline. Let me share my own daily habit with you, not to impress you, but to illustrate the ordinary actions that yield extraordinary results. I rise each morning and put my feet immediately on the floor before my mind has time to make excuses. No choice to be made, no self-discipline to call on, just do, then think. I exercise my body first not to fatigue, but to activation. 2 hours of physical movement, pushing the edges of my physical expression. Next, I exercise my mind through reading and reflection. Next, I exercise my art through intentional practice and creative innovation. Daily, whether shooting a movie or coming back from injury, whether praised or criticized, whether in awe or despair. The schedule is still there because the schedule is the magic. Think of the bamboo. It grows underground for 5 years, working on an elaborate root system hidden from view. Nothing to see, nothing to applaud, nothing to share on social media. Then, in the 6th year, it shoots up to 90 feet in a matter of weeks. The unschooled observer is amazed by this overnight success, unaware of the years of day-by-day, unseen growth that provided the foundation for the dramatic growth. Your life operates the same principle. Your day-to-day habits, the ones nobody observes, the ones that look ordinary and unimpressive, are laying down a root system below the surface. The world might not see. They might overlook your steady work as a norm and congratulate the occasional ferocity of others. But beneath the surface, something phenomenal is taking place. A foundation is being laid that will one day bear heights others have never dreamed of. I've learned from warriors throughout history and across cultures. From the Spartan warrior to the Shaolin monk, from the samurai to the Olympic athletes of old. Their training regimens were different, their philosophies were different, but there was one thing that was the same. They all knew the transformative power of daily practice. They all knew that mastery is not gained by sporadic heroic effort, but by lowly daily dedication. Let me ask you a question that may turn your whole world around. What if what you do today, no matter how small, is actually building your future self? What if what separates where you are and where you'd like to be lies, not in some mythical change, but in the snowball effect of daily habits? What if the distance between average and greatness is not as great as you've been conditioned to believe? Take 2 individuals. One works out with spectacular vigor once a week, going to complete exhaustion, bragging about what they've done so others can look. The second practices at moderate intensity 6 days a week, with no eye on social approval, but on simply arriving every single time. After 1 month, their outcomes could be the same. After 3 months, slight differences, but after a year, after 5 years, after 10. The difference is so extreme it seems like they were working on completely different tasks. But the only variation was consistency, the knowledge that frequency is more important than intensity. I notice so many of you doing the same thing I used to do. Thinking transformation is about drastic action, that improvement is about delivering peak performance all the time. But the human system is not that way. Sustainable growth is not founded upon intensity, it's founded upon consistency. Not the explosive exercise that exhausts you for days, but the steady practice you can do every day without exception. Not the frenzied creative session that exhausts you for weeks, but the daily steady work that builds up over time. Think about water boiling. Place small heat under a pot, and for an extended period, nothing seems to be happening. The temperature goes up 1 degree at a time, 80 degrees, 90 degrees, 95 degrees, just water. Then, at 100 degrees, there is a phase transition. That which was liquid is now gas. The character of the material has changed. Your improvement is exactly like that. Every practice day elevates your temperature by 1 degree. For weeks, for months, sometimes years, nothing remarkable seems to be occurring. Seems to be occurring. Same skills, same body, same outcomes. But you're reaching your boiling. And when you reach it after building up enough steady practice, there is a phase change. What was impossible becomes second nature. What was struggle becomes flow. The warrior knows this patience. They don't train for change immediately. They practice with the unobtrusive surety that patient, everyday effort, sustained long enough, triggers dramatic phase transitions that seem magical to those who have not seen the process occur. I recall my early years in America, attempting to introduce people to real martial arts in a society fixated on instant gratification. Students would come filled with enthusiasm, asking how long before they mastered something. How many years before I'll fight like you? My response always let them down. The fact that you're asking shows you're still looking from outside. You understand. The warrior isn't training to arrive at some destination in the future. The training itself is the destination, The day-to-day practice getting there, pushing your edges, making small changes that becomes the reward. And ironically, it's only when you're in love with the process and not the result that the results start coming in at a heightened rate. Let me tell you something personal. Folks look at my body, my speed, my strength, and they figure I was born with all these wonderful genes. They base this false assumption on this to excuse themselves, to make excuses for their own inconsistency. Bruce was different, they say. Bruce was special. They say Bruce was special. But here's what they don't notice. The thousands of days I arrived when nothing amazing occurred. The mornings I trained when others slept in. The evenings I practiced when others partying. The apparently ordinary, unexciting daily deposits into what I refer to as the reservoir of mastery. I wasn't gifted with amazing talents. I cultivated them with amazing consistency. And you can apply it in any area that's important to you. The warrior mindset isn't confined to the martial arts. It has application in all arenas of human activity, your business, your relationships, your creativity, your spirituality. Whatever you wish to excel at, the principle holds. Ordinary daily actions, taken with unshakable consistency, produce remarkable outcomes. Think about what happens when you take care of a plant. Miss one day and little is different. Miss 1 week and it begins to wither under stress. Miss 1 month and perishes. Your potential is the same. It needs daily feeding. Not dramatic, gushing torrents and droughts, but steady, measured feeding that accumulates energy day after day. When I formulated Jeet Kune Don't, men believed I was creating another style, another method. But what I was actually developing was a philosophy of steady evolution, not fixed patterns practiced every now and then with an intensity that I couldn't handle, but flexibility practiced daily, without fail, with no way as way, no limitation as limitation isn't. This is not just martial philosophy. It's the acknowledgement that real mastery lies in daily exposure, in ongoing work with your art. The question is not whether you possess what it takes to be remarkable. The correct question is, do you possess the humility to welcome the strength of mundane deeds done every day? Are you willing to let go of the cultural phenomenon of overnight success and dramatic change? Will you fall in love with the journey itself, rather than just the destination, and celebrate not only the end result, but also every step along the way? End result, but also every step along the way. I once had one student who trained with me for 5 years. For 3 of those, he didn't have much notable improvement. His movement was good, but not noteworthy. His comprehension was adequate, but not deep. To outsiders, he seemed average in all respects. Others wondered why he persisted, why he didn't pursue something where he naturally showed more ability. But he practiced every day without fail, without complaint, without reward. In his 4th year, something changed, not all at once, but appreciably. His movements flowed more smoothly, his comprehension intuitively, his presence more naturally. By his 5th year, individuals would observe him moving and presume he'd been born with a gift. They'd quiz me on his inborn talents, amazed at how certain individuals are born with it. I'd smile, aware that they were observing not genetic luck, but the combined force of more than 1,800 days of effort. They were observing bamboo in its 6th year and not knowing the unseen foundation that allowed it to grow that way. And there is the grand secret. What seems to be talent is usually only practice made invisible by time. What seems to be natural endowment is often only the aggregated result of little advantages built up through daily habit. I want to ask you a question. How many really great books have you ever read in your life? Books that transformed you, that opened your eyes, that changed your direction. How many life-altering conversations have informed your ideas? How many moments of true insight have changed your course? For most, these kinds of life-changing experiences are few, maybe a half dozen in a lifetime. But think about making them happen more often through habitual practice. Think about reading deeply every day, having meaningful conversation every day, examining your growth every day. What if your own development were the result of repeating these infrequent, life-changing experiences over and over again? This is what the warrior knows, that mastery is not accomplished through the sporadic insight, but by consciously ramping up opportunities for development through repetition. In my own experience, I've discovered that the biggest breakthroughs were not the result of isolated instances of extreme training, but of moments of insight that came after hundreds of days of steady practice. The punch that used to feel mechanical suddenly felt effortless. The idea that used to feel theoretical suddenly became embodied knowledge. Not because of what I did on that specific day, but because of what I had been doing each and every day up until then. Water doesn't force its way through rock. It severs, penetrates persistence, drop by drop, day by day, finding the route of least resistance but never relenting. This is how you have to go about your own growth. Not through sporadic acts of heroism that exhaust you, but through consistent day-to-day actions that become second nature. Society glorifies the dramatic, but real change occurs in the ordinary. It occurs in the showing up when you don't want to. It occurs in practicing when nobody's watching. It occurs in the choosing, again and again, to commit to growth over convenience, discipline over ease. I find myself wondering about the myriad of martial artists who trained for 4 decades in the shadows, mastering their art not for glory or accolades, but for the love of the discipline itself. History only remembers the names of a very few masters, but there were thousands who lived and died in obscurity, satisfying themselves not in public recognition, but in the individual satisfaction of daily training. Their payoff wasn't external achievement, but internal alchemy, the realization that, by their practice, they were turning themselves more fully into themselves, more fully alive. This is what I am saying by the warrior is average, but trains every day. The warrior is not trying to transcend averageness in serial bouts of greatness. They're going beyond the definition of average by converting to the extraordinary might of daily practice. They know that consistency is a unique and invaluable commodity in an overnight success and fast-fit society. They know that coming in every day, inspired or uninspired, is a kind of mastery very few ever master. Let me tell you about my 1-inch punch, the method by which I am able to deliver tremendous power over a short distance. Human beings are awed by it as if it were some hidden ability, some secret information. But do you have any idea what it actually is? It's the physical expression of being present each day. It's the built-up product of thousands of days' worth of practice, of minute adjustments, of fine-tuning. There's no hidden trick. There's only the not-so-secret daily practice of not being content, of continually searching for the limits of your present abilities. And this rule applies far beyond martial arts. The author who writes masterworks has simply written daily for years. The musician who appears to be channeling magic into their instrument has simply practiced daily since childhood. The business person who seems to have the Midas touch has merely learned about markets day in and day out for 40 years. Beneath any seeming overnight success, you'll discover the same basis. Regular daily effort sustained long enough to hit a tipping point. I want you to do something right now. Commit not to some spectacular change, not to some dramatic success, but to a little daily habit in whatever you'd like to improve. So small it feels ridiculous, but simple that you can't possibly decline. 5 minutes of dedicated training, 3 paragraphs of writing, 10 pages of reading, one deep conversation. Whatever discipline you are looking to excel at, track the minimum effective dose and stick with it every day. Not when you feel like it, not when it's convenient. Every single day. Do this for not a week, not a month, but a year. Monitor every day of practice. See what happens not only to your ability, but to yourself. Because here's the truth that most folks overlook. Consistency is not merely about what you do, it's about who you are in the making. Daily practice doesn't merely create skill, it creates character. It doesn't merely change your ability, it changes your sense of self. After months of appearing every day, you no longer think of yourself as one who is attempting to become a warrior. You are a warrior. For warriors practice every day, and so do you. I recall a specific phase in my growth where I became fixated on speed. I wanted my punches to be quicker, my responses instant. I trained with intense dedication, taking my body to the limits, becoming agitated when I was not making gains. Then, one night, tired and disappointed, I saw an old master going through his daily routine. His movements weren't especially fast or strong, but they held a quality I couldn't define, an effortlessness, a naturalness that made my own training look labored in comparison. When he was finished, I went up to him and asked him how long he had been practicing. 63 years, he said. 63 years, he said. Every day? I inquired. He regarded me with a curious expression, as if the question itself was peculiar. Of course, every day, he said. I ceased attempting to force great change through intensity and adopted the more subtle path of daily practice. And ironically, when I ceased fixating on speed and merely attended daily with full presence, my speed naturally increased, organically, as a byproduct of consistency, rather than an end explicitly sought. This is the warrior's secret. They don't chase results. They fall in love with the practice that produces results as a natural consequence. They don't focus on the destination, they immerse themselves in the journey, understanding that the quality of their daily experience matters more than some future achievement. But let me be clear about something. When I say the warrior is average but trains every day, I'm not saying you have to settle for mediocrity or water down your standards. In fact, the opposite is true. I'm saying that monumental results come from unleashing the power of ordinary things done with monumental consistency. The standards are higher than most folks can envision. The difference is in how those standards are pursued, not through occasional Herculean efforts, but through humble daily devotion. Consider how a river creates a canyon, not through sudden violence, but through consistent flow. Each day, the water removes a tiny amount of earth, so little that it's imperceptible, but maintained over time. This consistent action creates one of nature's most spectacular formations. Your development works the same way. Each session of practice may strip away but a grain of resistance, may introduce but a fractional amount of skill, but sustained over years, this steady effort grinds out something beautiful, a life of mastery, a character of discipline, a spirit of unbreakable resilience. Most people work on personal development in a manner similar to crash dieting episodes of rigid restriction, punctuated by total abandonment of the practice. They practice hard for 2 weeks and then vanish for 2 months. They write every day for a month and then lay down their pen for a season. They pray intensely for 10 days and then reject mindfulness altogether when life gets hectic. But transformation doesn't function like this. The body doesn't adjust to sporadic effort. The mind doesn't develop through random attention. The spirit doesn't expand through intermittent devotion. They all need the same, consistent daily practice. That realization changed the way I practiced martial arts. Rather than gauging progress in terms of the intensity of a single training session, I started gauging it in terms of consistency by the uninterrupted run of days I attended. No matter how I was feeling or what else was going on around me. Some of those days my training was short because of shooting schedules. Some days it was altered because of injuries. But the practice itself became non-negotiable, as important and habitual as brushing my teeth, as instinctive as breathing. The intensity and length may adapt, but the frequency was absolute. This is what distinguishes the warrior from the dabbler, the master from the enthusiast, not talent. Talent, not genes, not luck or circumstance or opportunity. Just the simple choice to be present each day when others appear sometimes. Just the subtle commitment to constancy when others rave about intensity. Just the persistence to have faith in the process when others insist on instant gratification. You may be thinking, but Bruce, some individuals do appear gifted. Some individuals do advance quicker than some others, even with equivalent training. And you're correct, there are natural talents. Various bodies and brains react differently to the same stimuli. But here is what I have noticed over decades of teaching thousands of students. The benefits bestowed by inborn talent are grossly exaggerated relative to the benefits bestowed by being consistently better, I've seen naturally talented kids get passed over time and time again by average kids who just didn't miss classes. I've witnessed average physiques excel spectacularly through the compounding benefit of being present when the naturally athletic were absent. This is not pie-in-the-sky optimism. It's not motivational jargon. It's the quantifiable fact of human progress in every area I've read about and witnessed. The arithmetic is simple but deep. If you are of middling ability but practice 3 times more often than someone with greater natural ability, you will overcome them. If you can continue that advantage over years, you will leave them behind to such an extent that onlookers will start crediting you with natural ability, never having a glimpse at the thousands of practice days that created the very thing they were convinced you were born with. This is not only the case in martial arts. Consider any area of human success. Read the lives of masters. You will see the same rhythm repeating. What seems like genius is frequently merely the compounding benefit of consistent day after day practice. What seems like magic is, in fact, common things done with monastic regularity. The world celebrates the extraordinary, but mastery is built through embracing the ordinary, recognizing that the gap between average and exceptional isn't as wide as we've been led to believe. It's often just a matter of frequency, of showing up daily when others show up occasionally, of maintaining consistency when others celebrate intensity. I want to share a training method I developed that embodies this philosophy. I call it minimal viable practice. Rather than aiming for maximum effort, which tends to result in burnout and inconsistency, I find the least significant activity that advances me in some specific area. For physical conditioning, it may be simply 15 minutes of basic movement. For reading, 10 pages. For writing, 1 paragraph. For meditation, 5 minutes of deliberate attention. Regardless of the discipline, I calculate the minimum effective dose, the smallest amount that still creates growth. Next, I promise myself that I will do this minimum practice every day without fail. And here's the important point. Once I have started the minimal practice, I allow myself to keep going if I am inspired. Frequently, the most difficult thing is to start. After the first 5 minutes are begun, momentum will often propel me into a more extended, deeper practice. But by eliminating the psychological hurdle of intimidating length or intensity, I allow consistency to remain feasible. Some days I perform the bare minimum. Some days I accomplish much more. But I never fail to show up for a day because the bare minimum demanded is always so small that I am able to do it no matter what. This mindset changed my relationship with practice. Rather than viewing training as something that demanded ideal conditions, sufficient time, sufficient energy, sufficient motivation, I realized that growth doesn't demand optimal circumstances. It demands persistent practice, even when conditions are less than ideal. The warrior practices every day, not because each day provides ideal practice conditions, but because they realize that consistency itself is the strongest condition for development. Think about how this could translate to your own life. What small daily habit could you make a commitment to that would add up over time in an area that is important to you? What bare minimum practice could you do every day, no matter what? What small, persistent action could build a canyon of change if practiced for years? The response to these questions holds more power than any method, any system, any philosophy that I might tell you. Because the truth is, mastery is not in knowledge, but in action. Not in what you know, but in what you know, but in what you do on a consistent basis. I'd like to talk about something significant: the distinction between motion and practice. Most people get busy and effective mixed up. They get activity mixed up with practice. But practice isn't just movement, it's movement with awareness, with intention, with presence. The warrior doesn't simply train daily, they practice daily. They give full attention to every movement, every repetition, every moment of application. They're not simply moving through rote, they're probing the edges of what they can already do, subtly refining, finding new avenues within familiar ground. This aspect of attention makes practice out of the ordinary, makes development out of exercise, makes growth out of repetition. I've seen students repeat the same physical motions alongside one another, one just going through techniques, the other actually practicing them. Same movements, radically different outcomes. The difference? The presence of awareness they exhibited with each repetition. One was present in body, but absent in mind. The other was present in mind, engaging each movement as a means of exploration rather than as a necessity to fulfill. This division is not limited to martial arts. The author who arrives daily but only writes without being present is just going through the motions. The author who brings complete attention to every sentence, who plays with language and intention, is in fact working on their craft. The warrior knows this distinction. They don't simply come every day, they come with quality attention. They show up to each practice session not as something to endure, but as a time to go deeper, to find the nuances, to to uncover new terrain in old territories. And this is where the remarkable becomes possible, not just through regularity, but through regular presence, through daily practice done with unyielding focus. I want to share with you the most significant training session of my growth. It wasn't some grueling seminar with a well-known master. It wasn't some epiphanic moment when suddenly I acquired a new technique. It was on an average Tuesday afternoon. Nothing unusual about the day. Nothing extraordinary about the situation. I was rehearsing a simple punch, an action I'd done literally hundreds of thousands of times. But on this specific day, for reasons that even to this day remain incomprehensible to me, I infused this common motion with a heightened quality of awareness. I felt things I'd never felt, learned inefficiencies I'd never seen, comprehended the mechanics in ways that had previously seemed elusive even after all those years of practice. Not because the punch was new, but because my focus was new. In that ordinary moment, executing that ordinary movement, I made a deep realization. Advanced technique doesn't exist. What exists are basics that you comprehend with added depth. The warrior doesn't move beyond the basics. They enter deeper into them through ongoing practice conducted with ever-increasing presence. This realization transformed my training. Rather than always looking for new techniques, new methods, new systems, I started to investigate familiar ground with fresh vision, applying newfound attention to movements I'd done thousands of times. And in this practicing of the known, not this seeking of the unknown, I learned more growth, more progress, more development than any new method could ever offer. This is what practicing every day gives, not merely repetition, but the chance for deeper penetration, for better understanding, for more genuine expression in familiar forms. But that depth can only be accessed through the commitment to being present every day, to working with your craft with steady attention rather than fitful intensity. The warrior's path is not about transcending the everyday. It's about finding the extraordinary in the everyday with the life-changing power of daily practice. It's about realizing that mastery lies not in some far-off accomplishment, but in the depth of your immersion in each day's practice. It's about realizing that the difference between average and exceptional is not as vast as we've been led to believe, that exceptional often simply means average behavior done exceptionally, consistently. Before I go, I want to present a challenge one that may appear easy, but holds within it the potential to revolutionize any part of your life. For the next 30 days, choose one small practice that is important to you, something so small that it feels nearly insignificant. 5 minutes of concentrated training, 3 paragraphs of writing, 10 pages of reading, 5 minutes of meditation. Whatever field you want to hone, discover the minimum effective dose and hold to it every single day. Not when inspired, not when it's easy. Every single day. Log every day of practice. Observe what occurs not only to your ability, but to your sense of self. Because this is the truth. Consistency isn't only what you are doing, it's who you are in the process. Jesus. After 30 days of continuous practice, you won't merely be acquiring a skill, you'll be acquiring the warrior's most precious asset. The power to show up no matter what, to maintain consistency where others bask in intensity, to trust the process where others insist on instant results. It is this quality, Above all technique or method or system that distinguishes the warrior from the dabbler, the master from the enthusiast. Not talent, not genetics, not luck or situation or circumstance or opportunities. Just the humble act of being there every day when everyone else is there some days. Just the quiet dedication to regularity when everyone else is praising intensity. Just the patience to trust the process when everyone else is demanding instant results. Remember, the warrior is ordinary, but trains daily. The exceptional is not in the avoidance of ordinariness through intermittent greatness. It's discovered in extending beyond the very idea of average with the poderous force of everyday practice. Water doesn't cut rock with strength. It cuts through persistence. Drop by drop, day by day, seeking the path of least resistance but never quitting. That's how you need to tackle your own improvement. Not through heroic bursts every now and then that exhaust you, but through consistent daily habits that become second nature. The world pampers the spectacular, but profound change occurs in the ordinary. It occurs in getting up when you don't want to. It occurs in drilling when nobody is observing. It occurs in making the decision over and over to lead with growth rather than comfort, with discipline rather than convenience. The warriors of ancient times understood something we've forgotten. They knew that mastery isn't about intensity, it's about immersion. It's not about the spectacular, it's about the sustainable. The samurai didn't become lethal by training until collapse once a month. They became weapons of life through the ritual of daily repetition, through arriving when inspired and arriving when uninspired, realizing that showing up is the strongest driver in the human condition. So I challenge you, be average. Love the ordinary. Discover the beauty of the mundane. Discover the beauty of the mundane and practice every day. In this modest consistency, in this silent discipline, in this everyday devotion to your art, you will find what the true warriors have always found. The extraordinary isn't in what you do from time to time. It's in what you do every day. Be water, friend, flow each day. Keep going. Change, not through brute strength, but through steady presence, not through random bursts of intensity, but through unshakable consistency. This is an average warrior, but he trains daily. And over time, this routine-looking commitment yields the most remarkable outcome of all, not merely a new body or mind, but a new life.